Welcome to Bed and Butter, the hospitality podcast, designed exclusively for budding students and aspiring industry leaders. We're thrilled to embark on this exciting journey with you. Each episode, we'll delve into the heart of hospitality industry with your host, Sean Riley, uncovering invaluable insights, trends, and strategies to not only succeed, but thrive in this dynamic field. The podcast is produced in collaboration with Southern Maine Community College. Listen to national leaders highlight opportunities for the active hospitality professional, students of SMCC's Culinary Arts program, as well as the L. Joe Van Wy School of Hospitality. This program is a labor of love, made possible with the help of the Communications and New Media Studies students. Whether you're sharpening your skills or stepping into the world of hospitality for the first time, Bed and Butter is your go-to resource. So let's dive in and spread the knowledge, one episode at a time.
Hey, listeners, our podcast title, Bed and Butter, was developed to encompass both the hotel and food components of our business. Today, we visit with Bo Byrne, a chef since he was in his teens, an executive chef of some of the finest restaurants and hotels in Maine. He's also done a stint in the dish room and prep kitchen like most of us. But his love for coaching aspiring culinarians led him to become a professor at SMCC. And to throw in some more diversity into his career, he's the owner of TOP, Top of the Old Port, Food Cart. What an interesting career. So sit back, relax, and get inspired. Hey, Bo. Thanks for joining us on the podcast today. I'm really sure our listeners are going to really find your career path exciting, and as I do. I know you've been executive chef of many of the finest restaurants in Southern Maine, but I got to tell you, the hook that got me was the hot dogs, the gourmet hot dogs. We can get into that later. We wanted to do something that was a little different, but then I found out you're a professor in the culinary arts. You've been to SMCC. You're at the place. It really is kind of cool. So it all kind of came together, and it all happened with a hot dog. So welcome to the podcast show, Bo.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, this is great.
Cool. We'll get into it a little bit, but one of the things I think you mentioned to me was that you were a foodie early on, and somehow that's kind of inspired you to move in that direction. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I definitely was gravitating toward food at an early age and knew that was my career path. I think it was for my 13th birthday, I had asked for culinary classes that I took at a local community college, and I remember the day that we showed up when that class started. My mom had brought me there, and the teacher wasn't there yet. So my mom was just kind of hanging out waiting. And when the teacher showed up, she's just looking around the room, introduced herself, and then kind of looked at my mom with a kid and was like, gave her this look like, who's this lady who, couldn't find a babysitter and brought this kid here? And then my mom just kind of picked up the vibe and said, oh, you're the teacher? Great. He's the student. I'll be back in 4 hours, and then took off. And then they were all like, we can't believe you're here. And everybody else was, more of a non-traditional student age, probably 30, 40s and 50s and that kind of a range. Yeah, I was there at 13 years old with my own knife and apron and learned about jicama for the first time, the potato apple hybrid. And it really, kind of blew my mind as to I never heard of this vegetable before. So it was a great class, and the journey started early for me. My mom was always a great home cook, and so we were spoiled with that, and that definitely was kind of the inspiration to want to continue to cook and entertain and to know how to do it.
That's great. You mentioned cook and entertain. I think that's a real cool concept. So when you say that, cook and entertain, how do those two go hand in hand? Not just with your mom and you probably, singing and dancing while you're cooking, but outside of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like the two are synonymous. It's not necessarily dinner and then a movie. It's kind of like dinner can be the movie. Dinner can be the whole show if you do it right and make it like Thanksgiving, for example, is like the perfect example of that family dinner. Plates are getting shared back and forth. Everybody's really invested in the meal and just the time together. And as many memories as you could make like that are beyond Thanksgiving is a huge plus for you and your friends and your family. So I think trying to have that level of entertainment, that level of sharing, that level of family style, it just really goes a long way.
Wow, that's great. Now, that wasn't one of my questions. I just thought when you said that, I just thought that's such a cool thing. Bill, it probably costs you as much to go to a movie as it does to get a fine dinner nowadays. I mean, popcorn costs you more than it would be to plate at the Harris Eakin.
Yeah, it does. You're not lying. Yeah, it's quite a bit to go. It's been a minute since I've been, but the last time I did go, it was quite pricey. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your career. Not every job, but I mean, what you've done. I know some of the great restaurants around the Portland area. But you've had an interesting career that led you to what you're doing now.
Yeah, I definitely started out dishwashing and was kind of cut my teeth in the industry that way. And that was an upgrade from my first job, which was working at a hair salon where I was sweeping hair and taking coats at the door and fitting the shampoo bottles to the labels faced out in the retail section. And my mother was a hairdresser. And so on Saturdays, I was getting dragged to work, and that was what I had to do. And so when I got the opportunity to leave that job to wash dishes for $7 an hour, that was a huge upgrade. And so that was how the path started. And I had a love of food, so it didn't take long before the people in the kitchen realized I could do more than wash a dish. And next thing you know, I was cooking croutons and washing romaine for salads, and I had interest in picking up those other smaller cooking shifts. So
it's a great thing to say that you raised your hand and you decided to do more. When you're in this hospitality business, but specifically restaurants, if you raise your hand and you just say, I'll work an extra shift or I'll do this, that's a career path you can set yourself on. Now you've actually had education too, but that's a great way to get started.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you show an interest in any position that you're in the industry, that's the easiest way to start to move up. The person who's working on the oven station, when they're not cooking anything, pay attention to the guy on the grill. See what's going on over there. And next thing you know, you could fill in for a few moments and possibly a whole shift before you know it. And you just kind of keep working your way up like that. You'll train each other as you go. But if you show an interest, people are always going to want to continue to coach you and train you along the way.
So that happened to you. And I see you've been at some great restaurants around the Portland area. Just name a couple of them. People will recognize the levels.
Yeah, I've gotten to work at the David's restaurant groups and the David 388, David's Opus 10, Tika restaurant, the Harrisika Inn, Broad Arrow Tavern, the Pepper Club when that was around as the Good Egg Cafe. Yeah, so I've gotten to work at several different locations around town throughout my time. Absolutely.
That's really cool. So, I know the life is in the kitchen and, you're washing pots and pans. And I think you talked about that. And I just wanted to make it clear that I too have been in the dish room and in the dish pit. And I do know if you hold the ladle down there to clean it and then you spray it with a spray hose, you get covered. So anybody that's been in the dish pit, a lot of times people just tell people to do it. That's one of the training you do is you just get the guy wet. But so I did learn that and I have done it. And, you don't drop the dish pan in the strainer in the sink because you get covered with gross stuff. So
right.
But you've done that too. You've worked in the dish room, not just as a kid, but what about as a full-fledged chef or a manager?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's going to be times where that's a position that sees a lot of turnaround, it seems. And when that happens, it speaks volumes when the head chef is willing to jump back there and set the tone, lead by example, do the dishes, show everybody that they're not above getting back there and doing that, even as they've graduated up the ladder, so to speak, as they've gone from dishwasher to prep cook to line cook, sous chef, chef de cuisine, executive chef. You still always have to be willing to jump back there and help out. The dishwasher is the most important person in the kitchen. That should be your opinion as somebody who works in the kitchen. You need to take very good care of them. If you take good care of your dishwasher, they'll take great care of you. Every time you go back and drop something off dirty, if you can help out by grabbing a stack of some clean stuff and walk it back with you, it makes all the difference to them. It's something as simple as that. And hey, every now and again, bring them, a cup of soup or some chicken tenders, and give them some food too. Give them something to eat, keep them well fed, help them put some stuff away, and they'll help you move mountains. I'm telling you right now, they're one of the most valuable people in the kitchen for sure.
Well, because you can't serve food without clean plates.
No,
it's really back to the basics. And I think you mentioned that as an executive chef, as a professor and all this stuff, I bet you if you're walking by, you jump by the dish and you grab a rack, go out and put the dishes out there. And it's just what you do. And that's a good leader. A lot of our audience are either in the kitchen or in hotels and they're hearing the same message, whether you're talking making beds or doing dishes. So I appreciate hearing that from somebody, high level of skill set.
As an instructor too, I routinely am having to help my students get the dishes reorganized and how to do it. Something as simple as the concept of what you put into the dish machine is reflective of how it comes out on the other side, right? It's not magic. If I put in 52 different objects, I now have to go 52 different directions once it's clean. So instead, if I try to wash all of the bowls at once, now I only have to stack the bowls and bring them to one location. So part of it starts with like, how are you even loading the rack? You know what I mean? Like it's all about, it's a chess game. It's not just thinking without any repercussion. Every action has a consequence.
And I think one of the neat things about what you're saying is that we in this industry as leaders and future leaders, you have to look at things more than just if washing dishes. There's a lot of steps you can make to make their lives better. And whether it be in the hotel business, whether it be in the kitchen, whether it be in sales or anything you do, you've got to make things. So you've done that in your career and helped you to get where you are. So now I mentioned briefly that you teach culinary arts and different classes within Southern Maine Community College. Just tell how did you get to that, from the dish pit to the executive chef to teaching people about the business?
Well, teaching people how to cook was always kind of one of the most fun things about this job along the whole way. And at a smaller level, that was as a young line cook when there was a new hire and you had to train them on how to cook the food that was on your station. The chef would say, hey, train so-and-so how to make the pizzas tonight. Okay. And that was your job. And that interaction of how you could bond with somebody, how you could put words to the actions that you do and get someone else to improve their skills. I always loved that aspect of it. I now just kind of magnified that concept, and I'm doing that on a level with a whole group of people all at once, right? Instead of just one person next to me that I'm rubbing elbows with, this is with the whole classroom of students and young minds that are engaged and want to improve their skills. And it's a wide range. I have non-traditional students. I have people right out of high school. And I've also, with that mix, I've got people that currently work in industry and people who have never picked up a knife in their life. I see it all.
That's really what our audience is. Our audience is that same thing. You've got people in the industry who want to move up or do more. We've got people just out of high school. We've got people maybe in high school. So a lot of our audience is that. And then we've got people who are going to be executives in both of these areas. So that's great. And I think the fact that you did that, it just shows that, you can have diverse careers within this one industry of hospitality. You've got the culinary side and you've got the hotel side, but also within the culinary side, you've been a dishwasher, you've been an executive chef, you've now been a professor. Okay, here's the cool part. Tell me about the hot dogs.
Right. So, and now, I get to add, a small time business owner to the list, right? And so on that level, I get to do street food vending. I go usually right in front of the custom house was one of my favorite spots to go in the summertime. I operate this business in the off season of the school. So this works out great for me because when school wraps up mid-May and doesn't pick up again until mid-August, that's a perfect opportunity for me to take this food cart, put it out on the street and do my gourmet hot dogs. Typically what I do is I make a menu that has a few of my, what I call the TOP dogs, known as the top dogs. So the TOP dogs we're the old port dog. And so what we do is we're big on the toppings, and one of them is called the prom dog, which stands for the pepper relish, onion, and mustard. So it's a sweet red pepper relish, caramelized griddled onions, local raised mustard. And then I do steamed bun, grilled dog. You can pick between a few different kinds. I've got red ones if you want. Otherwise, I got like the Nathan Famous ones that they use in the contest. I've got some Maine-made grass-fed beef and pork dogs as well. I have veggie dogs if you're vegetarian. So I've got a few options.
So you're explaining, you're showing to your students, I think, which is exciting, that there's a business out there too. It's not just a restaurant business. It's the business of restaurants. There's a really two different things. And as a professor, you're not just teaching kids to go out and cook. You may be turning them into business owners and entrepreneurs and successful restaurateurs that own multiple. I mean, the guy from David's, look what he's done.
David himself.
I can say I've got the best gourmet hot dog guy in the country on this podcast. That's going to make us famous.
That's right. Yeah. And, I have a lot of fun with it. The hot dog is almost secondary to the flavor profile. You put together like something, I go, think about like a Rangoon. And so I do like a warm scallion cream cheese and some crispy wonton threads, a sweet red chili sauce, pickled daikon radish, and the hot dog. And so when you have that bite, it's like over the top. You've never had that flavor before on a hot dog, but you've had that combination somewhere else. So now the fusion of it comes together, and that's one of my biggest sellers. So I have a lot of fun with it. There's an ode to grandma. I've got the grandma's chili dog inspired by one of her chili dips that we used to get at her house when you go over there for Sunday for a football game. And I just did that one a couple weekends ago at a festival. So
have I missed my opportunity to get a hot dog this year? But could I get it? Is it available like you throughout the year or just in the summer?
It's mostly summer, but I do private events and things too. I never, when I bought this hot dog cart, I never thought about these business opportunities, things like children's birthday party, a husband's 40th party, NFL fantasy football draft parties. I've done late night weddings where they've already had the normal plated dinner and they said, no, we want you there from like 10:30 on when they're all dancing and partying still. And then DJ's going to go, and the hot dog cart is ready outside. And the place goes nuts. And then they all come out, right? So
you thought getting out of the restaurant business into teaching was going to get you to bed earlier. Didn't necessarily happen.
For the most part, it has. For the most part, it has. I definitely have traded that in for more of a family friendly schedule now. I've got my son and beautiful wife, and to be home with them on nights and weekends is incredible. I didn't have that for years. I'll tell you right now. They've been very fortunate to me, very kind to me in moving dates around and celebrating a holiday on the following day, kind of a thing, because I have always had to work. Yeah, when you're in a hotel that's open 24/7, 365, everybody works Christmas. Everybody works Thanksgiving for at least part of the day. The higher up the food chain you go, it seems the longer that shift is, right? So
well, that's I think it's a great point. And one of the questions I thought about asking was, how do you balance? You're an entrepreneur, you're a professor, you're a chef, and you're a dad and a husband. How do you now? Again, I think you've said it well. Is that there were times in your career you just got to do it, but how do you balance that and make sure that your son and wife get some time?
I try to be mindful of it. Our schedules right now mesh really well where I can be with him completely some of the days of the week because I don't have school at the beginning of the week. And then I have other days where classes are over before noon. So there are opportunities some of the days like that where I get to participate. Her work has been really flexible with allowing her to do some time like that. But then again, with me just being home every night has just been a game changer. That's been my life for the last several years. And I'm glad that I get to cook for a smaller, more secluded audience, but they're just as judgy, just as much critique. I mean, if that kid doesn't like it, his face will tell you instantly. It's hilarious.
So no deal. That's great. Well, my grandkids go through the hot dog phase. They love it. Then the next time they don't. So you never know what their taste buds are going to do. So obviously you mentioned something about your mom, but give me a couple of people who influenced you and really made a difference in your life that maybe helped you guide you into what you're doing today in the last 10 years of your life.
Yeah, I'd say, mom was a big influence. I would say, if she didn't have kids at the time that she did at a younger age, she probably would have wanted to gravitate more into the cooking scene a little bit more herself. She's always been completely entranced by it. And I remember being a kid, we were watching Food Network in the early days, long before all the competition shows and all the stuff like it is now. I swear they didn't even have like beyond 10 hours of content. And then they would just like repeat the same shows over and over. They only had so much content back then, but she was always into food and that stuff was always on at our house. And she was always making bread, cooking dinner for us. I remember making green bagels as a little kid for St. Patrick's Day and things like that. So food was always special. We never ate a meal for dinner until my dad got home. So that was always a big thing for us. So it wasn't like the kids ate and then our parents ate. If dad didn't come home until 8:30, we didn't eat till 8:30. And that was how it always was for us. And we didn't know any better. We just thought that's what everybody did. And I would talk to my other friends and they'd be like, oh no, yeah, last night I had like a bowl of cereal. I'd be like, what do you mean you ate cereal for, what are you talking about? And I grew up with my mother making French baguette and full complete meals. We were spoiled in that way, but food was always an important thing for her. That was something she always wanted to be able to give to us and to share with us. And to this day, we've done this now for like probably the last 25 years. Our Christmas has consisted of her making a Chinese themed dinner where she makes her own pot stickers and egg rolls and fried rice and some other things like that. But the pot stickers are definitely the star of the show. So we'll always be like, oh yeah, we're doing pot stickers. Oh yeah, we'll do pot stickers. And so nowadays it involves getting together with her a few days before, helping her form them. It's even more of a family process. And then, when we get together on the day and cook them up and fry them up, it's a magical thing. And I think it all kind of started from the Christmas Story movie where the Bumpus dogs ruin the dinner and they have to go out. The only thing that's open is the Chinese restaurant for dinner, right? And so that's always been our family's movie. And so I think that pseudo led to this dinner for us. And we've been doing it forever. And I hope we continue it. Yeah.
Well, I got a couple of questions, Jeff, because I do have to close this out. But
sure.
So if you had a chance to say something, one person in your career, you get the 30-second speech. One person in your career really made a difference to you. Who might that have been? It doesn't have to be the person. A person did something special that made a difference to you. Who might that person that impacted you be?
I'd say probably the biggest impact would be I'd say Chef Barrio had probably the biggest impact coming up in culinary school. Just seeing that level of professionalism, hearing about the stories of working in the hotels and the springboards and what the level of education could lead to.
So did you go to SMCC as a student as well?
I did. I was an SMCC student. I was there back when it was SMTC. Okay. And I was actually the first graduating class of SMCC. So it was SMTC for year one, SMCC for year two. But in my time there, yeah, Chef Barrio was just definitely the trendsetter, the mindsetter for how to approach the business. And, there's some of the things that he said, things like make it nice or make it twice. Stick with me still to this day. They're just like burned into your mind.
My son graduated from SMCC. He was a non-traditional older student. He remembers Chef Byrne. He talks about him. Actually, Chef walks around his house in the neighborhood every day, and I'll see him on weekends. And we stop. And talk. He's just a great guy, and he's traveling all over the world still, eating fine food.
Still, and just utmost. When you talk about culinary professional, you're talking about Will Barrio for sure.
What would you say to someone about this career and about what they should or shouldn't do, or how can you guide someone in their career?
Things that they should do. Things that they should do. They should be coachable. They should be on time. They should be willing to take criticism. Right now, especially at the early stages of their career, people are only really looking to help them improve, and your ability to take criticism and make corrections is going to help you improve drastically. I would also tell anybody that's a culinary student, do it. You get better at it by actually physically getting out there and doing it. My students who put their knife in their knife bag and don't touch it for a week don't get any better at cutting. It's the people who after class go to work for a couple hours, even part-time. Your skills will improve drastically if you're involved, even at your house. Get behind the cutting board, make dinner, do something, and be active in the kitchen.
Well, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to go home and I'm going to prep for dinner tonight. And secondly, I'm going to find out wherever you're going to be open next, and I'm going to grab one of those hot dogs. Although maybe that's cook tonight. Some hot dogs. Hey, thank you so much, Bo. Bo has been a great leader in our industry throughout the Southern Maine. He's now teaching that at SMCC. He's taught me a few things. And Bo, I really appreciate you being part of our podcast, Bed and Butter, the hospitality podcast. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Bed and Butter, the hospitality podcast produced in partnership with Southern Maine Community College. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so that you don't miss any episodes, and have a butterful day.